Good morning. It is Thursday, May 7th. This is the Ways and Means Committee. And we are beginning our work today with S212, an act relating to potable water supply and wastewater system connections. And then we are going to, and we will vote on that. And then we will, if we have enough people here, we will go through S214, an act relating to provision of pre-kindergarten education and planning for a vote on that. And then we will probably then have lunch and the floor. We had 323 warned for after the floor, but are moving that to tomorrow after the floor. Given that today's floor is expected to go long, though hopefully it's about today. And with that, Michael O'Grady, tell us about the potable water. Such a nice word, potable.
Yes, so nice. Good morning. This is Michael O'Grady, Florida State Council. Would you like me to put the bill on the screen?
Always and forever.
Okay. So what am I going to talk to you about today? I'm going to talk to you about potable water supply and wastewater system connections, pretreatment discharge, making them both more efficient in how they're operated, including through delegation of the permitting authority to municipalities. So the first section you're looking at, let's skip that. Let's go to section 2. And I want you to look at the definitions of what a potable water supply and a wastewater system are. So a potable water supply.
You're not sharing your screen if you intended to.
Sorry, I thought I was.
Thank you. So it's still in process.
Ended unexpectedly. Okay. So potable water supply, you know this term better as a well. And a wastewater system, you know better as a septic system. But there are two provisions in each that are not potentially intuitive to you. And they include, you will see on page 2, line 8 and 9, service connections to a public water system. So what is a service connection? It's when you are a structure and there's existing or new, and there is a municipal or private wastewater or potable water supply system, public water system in your town. And when you connect that system to the structure, that connection has to get the same permit that a well and a septic system gets. So that is what we're talking about for the first few sections, those connections of existing or new structures to existing public water supply or wastewater systems.
The question that, because for what you've made this so visual that now I need to complete my visual, I'm sorry. Is the connection the entire length from the structure to the main line?
Yes, but it is not the.
Whatever sort of privately.
Right. But it is not the internal. You can see it does not include any internal piping or plumbing, except for mechanical systems such as pump stations that are necessary to move the water or wastewater. So that is what we are talking about right now. Now, one of the things that you have tried to address over the years is making those connections more efficient and effective and affordable. And you have tried several things to do that. You've allowed licensed engineers to approve those connections in designated downtowns. You've given municipalities the opportunity to get delegated to do it on their own. None of them have worked. to the extent that municipalities have not looked for any connections for licensed designers in designated downtowns, and only 2 municipalities sought full delegation, and they have both surrendered it. So what you're looking at today is another approach to making those connections easier, effective, and more affordable. And so the first section changes the purpose of this chapter, and this chapter relates to potable water supply and wastewater system permits, so your well and septic system permits. And it is striking reference to the purpose would be to allow delegation of the permitting program to municipalities, because no municipality currently has a full delegation, and no one wants it, because it's actually really hard to run this program, because this program, you hear about the divas, you hear about TMDLs and water discharges, you hear about solid waste, you hear about air. This division issues the most permits at ANR
Oh,
by far, and they are not known as that. So,
because there are fewer problems that come to our attention.
well, that is partly, it's also supported by what are called licensed designers, professional engineers, and those people that are not professional engineers that are certified to do site design, that they kind of support that system and make it effective. How effective it is, it really depends on your perspective, but they are the machine, the permit machine at the agency. So skipping on to section 3, you will see this is where the permits are required. You will see that making a new or modified connection to a new or existing potable water supply or wastewater system is it requires a permit. I also want to point out that under this section, under this chapter, this program, you've told ANR to give deference to licensed designers, those engineers and other certified professionals when they're engineering their design. This is intended to make it easier for ANR to approve permits so that they rely on the engineer certification. And it's important to engineers because if they violate the rules, if they're issuing false certifications, they can lose their license. And so I wanted you to keep that in mind because it's going to come back in a minute. So the first strike, the repeal on page 3, line 20, going on to page 4, that's striking one of the attempts you made to facilitate connections in the past, where there was the issuance of the permit for new or modified connections in those designated downtowns when a licensed designer certified it. No town took advantage of this authority at all.
Over how?
It's been over 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So,
Surprise.
and then,
Michael, before you go on, is there any other place in statute where such deference is given to licensed engineers?
no, but you're gonna see efforts most likely over the next couple of years, especially if what you're about to look at next is workable. That it's been discussed as a way to reduce administrative and permitting pressure on the agency. And especially if you use this next tool.
Okay, terrific, thank you.
And
Setting out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that next tool is a general permit. Do people know what a general permit is? I think most people are kind of intuitively think when you need a permit, you, the individual or the individual business, go to the agency, you fill out a form, you put it in, the agency says you need to do this, you go back and you individually do it. And it's like, and then the agency says, oh, because of your site constraints, you need to do this, your individual site constraints, you need to do this. So you wind up with a permit that is particularly tailored to you, the individual or the individual business. That takes a long time, or longer than some people would like it to. Now, a general permit is issued for a class of activities or a class of properties where there are similar conditions or similar requirements that can be imposed. So instead of issuing an individual permit to 500 people, 500 individual permits, the agency issues one permit. And it says, if you are doing this thing, then this is what you need to do in order to get your permit. So instead of going to the agency and applying and say, this is my individual site, this is what should I do, give me my individual permit, you apply for coverage under that general permit. You say, I am going to do the things that this general permit says I need to do, and then I will be authorized. And it's a very effective tool, especially for things like low impact water regulation. And the best example I can give of it is under the federal EPA Clean Water Act, if you are going to disturb an acre of land for construction, you have to put in stormwater management practices. An acre of land, if you were going to issue an individual permit for every time somebody disturbs an acre of land for construction, there would be thousands of individual permits and it would take forever to issue those permits. They instead have a general permit. People just apply and say, we're going to get covered under it. Sometimes you don't even need to report that you're getting coverage under it. And you just do what is said underneath that general permit. So here, it's not going to be as basically easy as the construction general permit. A&R is going to issue a general permit for those potable water supply and wastewater system connections. They may give deference to licensed designers in certifying compliance with the general permit. They're going to publish a manual with pictures, and I'm not kidding. They're going to publish a manual with pictures because when you look at the technical narrative written summary of what you need to do, it's kind of technical. And so they're like, hey, if we show a picture of what it's that you're supposed to do, that'll be easier. And so that will be available to designers under this general permit. And then they're going to define what the capacity of a public water system is or wastewater system. When you are a municipality and you are connecting to new structures, one of the key things to contemplate is whether or not your public water supply, whether your wastewater treatment system can actually serve that new structure. And that's the capacity. And it's not as easy as it sounds to determine capacity, especially in older towns with older systems where there might be leakages, there might be systems that are not working the way that they used to work. And so one of the things A&R is going to help municipalities with in this general permit is like, how do you determine what the capacity of your system or your public water supply is? So this is a required general permit. This is something that A&R has to do, and you'll see the timeline for that in a subsequent section. But the committee also gave A&R discretionary general permit authority to issue general permits for other types of permits, well and septic permits that are currently required under A&R's potable water supply and wastewater system rules. One of those is subdivision of land. If you have a property.
Slightly too deep.
Pardon?
I think we're going slightly too deep.
Slightly, I'm sorry.
Deep.
Okay.
It's,
All right.
or into the, I
Yes.
wish I had the.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so there's discretionary authority for general permits for subdivision, for boundary issues, for small potable water supplies and small wastewater systems, provided that they don't have particular issues that need to be addressed through a variance, a hydrogeologic analysis, or other alternative technologies.
Oh.
So mandated general permit for connections, discretionary general permit for other types of well and wastewater system permits. So Section 4 gets rid of one of those options that you tried to do to address the issues with wastewater and potable water supply permitting in the past. It gets rid of full delegation to municipalities. Only 2 municipalities ever sought it, Colchester and Charlotte, and they have said it's too hard. We don't want to do it anymore. And so the state now has full permitting wells and septic systems across the state. But some of these municipalities, for the connections, think about it. You run your public water supply, you run your wastewater system. You probably are already required under your permitting to make sure that any new connection is suitable and approved by you and your system. But then there's also this state permit program that requires that be approved as well in order to ensure public health is being met and environmental concerns are satisfied. So in order to, in some of these municipalities, avoid that duplicative permitting, the duplicative review, A&R is authorized to delegate to municipalities the ability to conduct the technical review of wastewater and potable water supply connections. They need to follow the general permit. They need to give deference to licensed engineers. And so it's going to be the same standard. It's just going to be a different entity issuing the approval for the connection. And the municipality needs to meet some certain criteria. They have to actually own the potable water supply and wastewater system, because in some municipalities, the fire district owns it, not the municipality. They have to have qualifications to run it. They have to get their legislative body to administer it, because you can't have your board of sewer just being like, hey, we're going to do this now, and your town legislative select board doesn't want to do it. You have to make sure that there's adequate capacity in each system, and you have to send documentation of the permit to A&R, and I won't go into that. I could talk to you for about 15 minutes about why I have to do that.
What about a privately owned pump station situation?
It's the same. It's any structure. If you're going to build a new residential structure and you're going to connect to the system, you're going to need that permit. But now you're going to be able to do that under a general permit. Before, you had to have a licensed engineer or site designer approve that connection in order to get the permit. Now you may still need to do that, but it should be at a lower cost. There should be a cost advantage to operating under a general permit rather than individual permit.
So my question was going to be, if it was privately owned and someone wanted their child was going to build a house near them and let them hook onto the pump station for sewage.
So if that child is connecting to the municipal system, they're going to need the permit. If they're connected to connect to your system, you're probably going to need a new permit.
That allows for them.
Right.
And that's true under current law.
That's current law. So page 9, you're moving into section 5. This is the fee authority. And the first thing it does is it allows those municipalities that are conducting technical review or approval of these connections to charge a fee. Remember, they're probably already charging a fee. Those that are doing approval of connections are probably already charging a fee. And this is just to clarify that they can continue to charge that fee. But they're going to send $100 to A&R, because remember, they're sending documentation of these connections to A&R, and A&R has to have staff that process it and put it in their permit database so that everyone has that second repository of where they can find these permits. Because these permits are very important to when you sell your home. And then it is changing the fees for these connections. Right now, you will see Page 10, line 7, what the fees are for every other potable water supply and wastewater system permit. Now, these are not going to apply to connections. I want you to look at some of these just briefly. I won't walk through them, but there's several categories. The fees are pretty high. Under the proposed general permit fees, so original applications or major amendments for coverage under the general permit, there's fewer categories and the fees are lower because it's going to require less agency time in order to process. Remember, because fees are supposed to be corresponding to the service received or the staff time spent in issuing the authorization. So the design flows below 2,000 are going to be 250. That's less than the 300 that it is, less than the,
6.5.
yeah, 300. I don't know why there's a quarter there either. And for 2,000 to 6,500, it's 2,500. That's less than the 3,000.
Where's the quarter?
Quarter is
16.
Ah, thank you.
so. And then the design flows for greater than 6,500, it's going to be 5,000 instead of 7,500 under individual plan. Now, A&R is going to required to issue that general permit by December 1, 2027, and they were required to start accepting certifications from licensed engineers on January 1, 2028. Then Section 6, subsection C repeals provisions in the wastewater system and potable water supply rules that are no longer relevant. You no longer have full delegation, so you no longer have to have a rule about full delegation. You no longer have certain provisions about connections because that's going to be addressed in the general permit. So those provisions that are no longer relevant in the rules are repealed. And then Section 7, you are moving out of well and septic systems and you're moving into something called pre-treatment discharge to publicly owned treatment works. And let's talk about what that is. And we'll look at the definitions of those two terms on page 14. I think you all understand what a discharge permit is. There's a wastewater facility, there's an industry or business that has waste that it has to discharge to waters. They have to get a permit for that. They have to meet the state's water quality standards. Sometimes before they can discharge that waste into the water, they have to treat that waste before it is just discharged. So that is called pre-treatment. It's the reduction of the amount of the pollutants, the elimination of the pollutants, or the alteration of the nature of the pollutant properties and wastewater prior to or in lieu of discharging or otherwise introducing pollutants into a publicly owned treatment work. Publicly owned treatment work has a very long federal definition that I just cross-referenced to, but it's effectively your wastewater treatment facility. So why is this an issue? In many jurisdictions across the country, pre-treatment discharge is delegated to the municipality because the municipality is the one that's running the wastewater treatment facility. It's running the publicly owned treatment work. It's totally allowed. But Vermont has not been doing it. And there was a question of why they weren't doing it. And it was, in my opinion, because in 1982, EPA approved the state to do pre-treatment discharge. And there's a document out there from 1982 that effectively says that. So A&R has been in conversation with EPA to see if they can delegate the pre-treatment discharge permitting to municipalities that want it. EPA has informally said yes, but they need to provide a more formal authority. But in anticipation of that, because I fully anticipated, if you look at the pre-treatment discharge, EPA site, they show all of the states that have pretreatment authority and whether or not they've been delegated. And there's 5 states with this little asterisk next to it. And we're one of those states. And it's because that 1982 agreement. So what you're going to do in anticipation of EPA authorizing delegation, you say the secretary may enter into an agreement with the owner of a POTW to delegate to the owner of the POTW authority to regulate pretreatment discharges. An agreement entered into by the secretary shall authorize them to regulate and enforce pretreatment discharges, including civil, criminal, or administrative penalties. You might not know it, but you can go to jail for violation of the Clean Water Act. So if you're thinking about discharging anything, the owner of a POTW that the secretary enters into an agreement with may, as part of the agreement, set application fees and other fees necessary for regulation, because you're delegating the whole treatment and permitting to them. And so they're going to be issuing the fees. And Ted and Sal will probably talk to you about that. So that's the pretreatment discharge authority. There is a Section 8 because of that need for the EPA approval of the Vermont authority to delegate. There's a contingent effective date of Section 7 once A&R EPA provides notice to the clerk of the House and the Senate secretary that EPA authorizes municipal administration. They will be able to delegate pretreatment to municipalities that meet those conditions. Now, there are 2 requests for amendment. One is on page 15.
And I just realized that I never approved that amendment from you, so I forwarded to Sorsha. She's posting it right now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I didn't want to presume
I know, sorry, I just caught up with myself on it.
On page 15 is just a terminology issue. In the original drafts of the bill, we were referencing the agreement for pretreatment discharge as a memorandum of understanding. I did not change that term in Section 8. So memorandum of understanding should be changed to agreement. And then the probably more substantive one is a section I skipped over because I wanted to talk to you about it as part of the amendment. And that is, right now, there is a fee cap on potable water supply and wastewater system permits when it's for a project located in a Vermont neighborhood designated under 24 VSA Chapter 76A. So designated downtowns, designated villages, etc. Now, those designated areas are vastly expanding. And that means that the potential fee exception and the impact on the agency is significant. I'll let Ted tell you what that impact is, but the agency came in and said, please strike this fee cap because it's going to significantly affect our budget. And the committee did that. And so that's the second amendment. The second amendment is to change the effective date of this. Ted pointed out the current effective date is on passage. You're going to need some time to actually implement this. And so the effective date for this is moved to July of 2026.
Paying the fee that you were talking about, if the definition is expanded, so it includes all the community infrastructure
It's anyone that's looking for a project.
Okay, so they're paying the fee,
They're paying the fee.
not the municipality.
So that's what I have.
I'm gonna, pull up that amendment.
Sure.
It's posted now. But you might need to refresh.
Yeah. First Amendment, striking a memorandum of understanding and inserting in lieu thereof an agreement. Second Amendment, and the effective dates, the act takes effect on passage, except that fee cap shall take effect July 1, 2026.
All right. Any questions about this, folks?
Comment. Thank you. Over the years, as you may remember, there's been a lot of efforts, some quarters to just let the town do it. And what I like about this is it, codifies, consistent language throughout, and it'll make it helpful for everybody, I think, to get it right first up. And anyway, so that's the main thing. It's just, it's straightforward. And it's good to get it right the first time. Thank you.
Present Brennan.
Can you tell me again about the cap, that the committee doesn't like the cap or the agency doesn't like the cap?
Well, I think the cap will have, when the cap was put in place, the number of designated centers in downtowns was fairly limited, right? And so the fiscal impact of it was relatively small. But in the past couple of years, with your push for development and other provisions, you've increased the number of areas that will be designated areas. And so the universe of areas that are in the universe of projects that will be eligible for the cap is expanding greatly. And Ted will tell you how much so. And the agency is probably already kind of on a shoestring budget. And remember, it is the permit machine. It's the one that issues, this division issues the most permits at A&R. They said that they couldn't handle the budget impact that this is estimated to have.
And Ted will tell us more about it.
So we're going to stop share.
Yep. And Sal and Ted, floor is yours.
Right.
Morning, Ted Barnett, Joint Fiscal Office.
South Beta this one.
I am going to talk high level about the expansion of designated areas and kind of the concerns around the current law impact of the $50 fee cap. And then defer to Sal because he did the lion's share of the analysis on the actual revenue collections. Here.
I just have a quick question. It may apply to Mr. O'Grady. A&R doesn't want to look after charging, or they don't want a cap on the fees, and they're passing it on to municipality, those fees.
No, let's hear the presentation and then you can ask the question again. Okay.
Sure. So under current law, this is the left-hand side of the table here. Residential permits that are in neighborhood designation areas, regardless of the size, pay that $50 cap fee. And then projects that occur outside of those areas pay this tiered fee structure based on the gallons per day associated with the project. So we are going to refer to, for the rest of how I'm talking about this, when I say the tiered fee structure, that refers to the bottom part of this column, which starts at $306.25, and yes, runs all the way up to $13,500 for larger projects. At the current size of the designated areas, the difference between that $50 cap fee and what those permits would have paid at the full tiered structure is relatively small. Not all of the projects that are in those designated areas are taking up the cap. Talking with A&R, maybe not everyone knows that they actually fall within the neighborhood designated area. There is some additional language that kind of qualifies that they must have allocated capacity within the area when they're applying for a permit. So maybe that's muddying the waters. We're not entirely sure, but not all projects are taking up this fee cap. So the impact is relatively small. As Mike mentioned, and as you all have talked about, those designated areas are going to increase quite a bit. And analysis from A&R indicated that they were able to compare their permits along with kind of the first draft of those maps using GIS. So you have the span number on the permit, show where those interlap with the proposed areas, and it looked like the number of permits that would be impacted would increase by anywhere from 6 to 8 times. Yes, it's pretty large. And I think given the questions around take-up rate, we're not entirely sure. We're not able to put a specific number. It's certainly a couple FTEs.
Currently, the number of neighborhood designated areas is really small.
It's pretty small, and not all the projects in those areas are taking up the fee cap.
Right.
Yes,
This is expanding to anybody that's in the CIP,
pretty much, yes.
right?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. right.
And so they were concerned, I mean, it would impact their operations for sure. And so they went in and asked the committee to repeal this cap, kind of looking into the future. And so that impact would have started in, those maps are due to be finished at the end of this calendar year. And so it would have taken effect in the next fiscal year. So given the concern, that was that was the decision that was made to address that problem.
Really just 1A and 1B?
It is designated, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it is designated both centers and neighborhoods. Yep. So within the new structure, so you have kind of those mechanics going on in current law. The general connection permits that would come online in January 1st, 2028. So fiscal year 28, those fees have a lower fee structure reflecting the fact that they are, should be less onerous to implement and permit. So when you can compare the two right columns to show the discounted fee structure. So you're seeing by getting rid of the capped fees, folks will be paying more on their permits, but on the connection permits, there's a lower fee structure, so there'd be a revenue loss compared to current law. And so that's kind of the general mechanics here overall. There are a few additional pieces here that I should mention. The administrative permits of $100. We're not entirely sure how many municipalities will adopt that partial delegation of authority and pay those fees, but wanted to mention it would increase revenues through payment of a new fee. And then finally, the repeal of exemptions in connection with the general permit coming online. That would also increase revenues because you're getting rid of an exemption. But again, we don't know the exact scope. We just know that it's a little bit less than, it's relatively minimal, and it's less than the amount of, you're not netting the full amount of revenue loss from the connection permits. So that's broad level, and then I will go up to
Before you
fiscal impact.
go back to broad level.
Yep.
I'm doing like math to try to understand the differences.
Mhm.
You don't have a column for that.
These,
Tell me about those choices.
I think because we are not sure about specific amounts for the administrative fees and the exemptions. But we have better information on neighborhoods versus general connection permits. And there is a complicating factor that the analysis is dramatically different between current law and the amount of fee revenue that's being collected in, like, the actual amount of revenue they're receiving. So we talked with folks in the office around the clarity of which analysis to choose that's most reflective. And I think comparing it to current law and saying that the revenue impact of this is, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, it isn't necessarily increasing from the current amount of revenue that they're collecting, just because those the revenue impact of the change in expansion of designated areas is so potentially large. We wanted to compare against the actual amount of fee revenue that was being collected at A&R. That was some of the thought process. It's like, I think ultimately, unfortunately, this bill has a lot of moving pieces that are all going on at the same time. And hopefully the statement that Sal is going to say will clear up, that piece. But I understand the concern and really thought about whether to include the actual dollar amount.
There was a reason, so.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Those fees, who gets the fees? Is it A and R? Are all those fees are going to A and R, or do they go to the municipalities that have the ability to issue?
So all of the fees referenced thus far are, yes, in this table are all state level fees. They go to A&R and they're deposited in the environmental permit fund, which administers the whole permitting process at A&R, and it's a broader scope than these specific permits. It includes things like pollution control and other, drinking water projects. It includes a whole scope of things.
So the municipalities that have the authority for connections and things like that from A and R, they're authorized fees as well for the builder or what have you.
Yes, so the municipality,
Would they be equivalent, to something like this?
I think it's up to the municipality, but yes, in those that receive delegated.
They're not. Okay.
Can you use more words?
It's town by town. And they have that authority already. And be pretty significant in some.
So this isn't changing that at all.
It's just recognizing that they can charge those fees that they're already charging. And when they are delegated, they have to send that $100 with the documentation of the authority.
It just, here we are with the housing crisis and, the cost to build homes. This just seems to me to be additional costs for the builder.
So this is not, this is actually potentially going to reduce the permitting fee and reduce the engineering fee. Right, so if you go to a general permit, the general permit under the state system is going to be less. Right, it's, as I walk you through, it's a less fee. And it should take your licensed engineer less time to do that. So they shouldn't be charging you $1,000 for connection or maybe more. They should be charging you less than what they're charging you for their individual permit. In addition, you're no longer in a delegated town, you're no longer paying two fees. You're no longer paying the A&R fee and the town fee. You're paying the town fee plus $100 to A&R just to make sure that your permit is recorded and viable if you're going to transfer your property in the future. So it should change, it should lower pressure on cost for these types of connections
And make it easier,
and make it easy.
which can be less expensive, but can also just be less suffering. Representative Muslim?
Thank you. Over the years, particularly when we used to have a fee bill, as people will remember, we encountered general permits fairly often. And the chair is exactly correct. It makes the process much more straightforward, recognizable by builders and developers, and saves money and time. Thank you.
Great, sure. And given the question for Representative Page and Mike's answer, I think it makes sense to have Sal give his analysis that really reflects how we anticipate revenues moving according to current revenue collection today.
Yeah, so I'll start. So we did try to estimate the overall impact that these changes would make. And we're seeing two things moving at once. One being that projects that were formerly subject to the neighborhood rate would now be paying according to that proposed connection and all other projects rates. So for the projects that were paying the neighborhood rate, they would now be paying according to that higher fee structure, which would bring in additional revenue. But for those that were connections projects that we're paying according to the current fee structure, they would be paying according to the new lower structure. So we would actually see a revenue loss from that. And overall, though, we see that those impacts that up and down net out. So we actually see a minimal impact to revenue overall for that.
Because the general permits for the higher fees. on the individual.
Yes.
Is there anything else in the document that you two want to show?
The thing I didn't cover it, we referenced the municipal fees, within, for municipalities that have adopted partial delegation, within section 7 and 8, which refers to the pre-treatment program. The language does include references to fees, but those refer to fees paid, to the municipality, not the state. I wanted to clarify that was in the bill, but if all of a sudden your section 7 and 8 have the word fee in it, but Ted didn't mention anything about fees, it's because they are municipal, not state fees.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just a comment on with regards to pre-treatment structures, mostly directed to Mike's testimony. Pre-treatments, there was a number of us who went to Rhode Island a number of years ago to look at pre-treatment structures. And what they do is they remove pathogens, viruses from the discharge in order to basically minimize the amount of land that's used for a septic system, which enables builders to build primarily residential housing on less land, which is a net savings, I guess, beneficial for all of us. And I'm glad to see ANR is retaining oversight over their approval.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's just, I don't know if Ted or Mike is the right one to ask about this. So I think there was a pretreatment facility that was built in Waitsfield for a particular business that needed, and maybe Georgia, that needs to reduce the toxicity of its waste for discharge.
Yeah, I mean, pretreatment is usually tailored or unique to the industry at issue, you know. Breweries, their waste, it creates VOD, oxygen that can literally develop a wastewater system. And so in order to prevent that, they pre-treat either at the facility, or if you have multiple industries or a big enough industry that they can't do it on site, they'll create a pre-treatment facility for themselves. So the municipality, the system isn't dealing with the potential issues with pre-treatment. Dairies, breweries, industry, manufacturing, depending on what your process is, what the pollutant may be, the pre-treatment can differ.
Okay.
But remember, I mean, your systems, many of them are still at base based on the Roman system of like pressure and capacity, right? And to make sure that that doesn't create issues, the municipality has to manage all of the additions to that system. And so that's why they're very interested in being the ones to do this, because it's very integral to how they run their facility.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Brannigan.
I think this will be brief, but let's say there's a nice little town sitting on the edge of the Lamoille River. And
Asking for a friend.
asking for a friend. So this town has a municipal water system and sewer septic system, kind of thing. But the town has farms and it's all broad, but there is a village. So this water system only works for the village, and the school is located in the village. But no factories. Are they gonna lose money with this change, or gain, or stay the same?
Well, it wouldn't impact the specific municipality. As we talked about, it would specifically pertain to projects that are occurring within that village. And how right, they would, depending on whether that permit type is a connection permit versus and applying to the general permit, or whether in this change, there would be another type of permit and paying the tiered fee structure. So it really depends on the type of project and how the designation works in that hypothetical community along the Lamoille River.
But the town wouldn't be losing any money.
Right, yes.
Theoretically, if they got delegated, they would probably be making money. So,
I think they are a center.
Mhm.
You know, Development center. So, okay, good.
Thank
It's
you.
helpful. Glad to hear it.
Thank you both so much. Really good to have you.
Yes.
Anyone need anything else?
Madam Chair, I would move that, having really no discernible fiscal impact, that we find S212 favorable.
Representative Kimball moves that we find the amendment to S 212 favorable. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, if the, please call the roll on the amendment. Or, Representative Brannigan.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, as Representative Burkhart. Representative Bigley is not here. Representative Holcomb. Yes. Representative Kimball.
Yes.
Representative Maslin.
Yes.
Representative Odie. Yes. Representative Page.
Yes.
Representative Wazazat.
Yes.
Representative Canfield.
Yes.
And Representative Kornheiser.
Yes.
We have voted the amendment favorable 10-0-1. Thank you.
Great, move the bill.
Indeed.
Madam Chair, I would now move that we find the underlying bill S212 favorable
Yeah.
as amended.
Representative Kimball moves that we find S 212 favorable as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk, please call the roll. Representative Brannigan.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, as Representative Burkhart. Representative Higley is still not here. Representative Holcomb, okay. I know where I'm coming from. Representative Kimball.
Yes.
Representative Maslin.
Yep.
Representative Odie. Representative Page.
Yes.
Representative Wazazak.
Yes.
Representative Canfield.
Yes.
And Representative Kornheiser.
Yes.
We have voted the bill favorable as amended 10-0-1. Thank you, everyone. And then
Thank you.
we're gonna take a break, but I'm not sure how long we're taking, until 10:15.